Well, we did it. We made it to the other side of the holidays. And the holidays, well, they can be complicated, right? They're especially complicated if you grew up in a rough childhood or if you've had difficult, unhealthy relationships in your past. Even if you've left those people behind, even if they're no longer in your immediate world, something about this season can still pull you right back in. It's subconscious, but it's real. I mean, have you ever thought, hey, that's behind me now, I'm over that, and then someone completely unrelated says or does something, and suddenly you feel like you're back where you were. Maybe you'll notice you've got a headache, or you're nauseous, a lump in your throat, back pain. Have you ever had sciatica or ulcers or IBS suddenly flare up over the holidays? Those are inflammation in your body, and that old line that you hear yourself saying, I just can't seem to sleep right now. That's your nervous system talking. Maybe someone made you feel pressured or coerced to do something, obligated to do something you really didn't want to do, or that you needed to spend time with people that your body was trying to quietly avoid. There's a message given to us around the holidays that we're supposed to be with family and loved ones, and that being alone is somehow worse. For many people, that's kind of a Martha Stewart fantasy. So thinking that being alone is some kind of a failure, we subconsciously tell ourselves, well, this is better than nothing, until we realize that nothing is actually better than that discomfort. And that realization is a huge mind shift, admitting that certain relationships are unhealthy or unmanageable can feel like stepping into a free fall within a net. But we don't end up hitting the ground. It's actually healthier. And on the other side of that free fall is calm and safety and relief for your entire nervous system. Your mental and physical health both react differently after the fact. So let's talk about the familiarity of those unhealthy expectations. I mean, most of the experiences that marked us emotionally happened in our families of origin when we were kids, when we accepted unhealthy people or patterns as we became adults. It was because it was familiar, because we repeat what we learned. So when someone says or does something that triggers you right now, it's not a clear memory. It's more like an echo that is living in your nervous system. And when those echoes get activated in adulthood, your body reacts the same way it did when you were powerless as a child. And people think that our emotions live in our brain, but they don't. They actually live from the neck down. And that's why trauma shows up in our body when we learn how to recognize it. And most modalities on trauma recovery is about learning how to listen, to release those echoes, no matter how sneaky or faded they might appear right now. And this holiday season, I practice being only with people who didn't trigger those echoes in me. If I were to name my core wounds, they'd be the fear of judgment and fear of deep abandonment. And I grew up in an environment where shame was used as control. You will be judged and rejected. And when we can become aware of these triggers, of other people's expectations, of obligations from other people, of their opinions, it loses its power. Now, I'm not saying let's be selfish. I'm saying we need to be self first and to just be aware when those old lessons are guiding our decisions, especially if you're naturally empathetic, compassionate, and capable of deep love. It's normal for obligation to creep in and then to put us in harm's way. And we know that that shift in us happens when we notice, hey, I'm saying yes right now because I'd feel guilty if I said no, or I'm more worried about what they think of me than what I need. That awareness is an important shift and a kind of a sixth sense, an intuition, and it changes everything. Empathy and compassion are great things. We want more of that. But inappropriate guilt and old shame, that steals our power. And when relationships are built on obligation, no one's actually happy. Your body knows that because there's a history. The echo shows up in our mental and physical health. And until those echoes are addressed, they're just going to keep guiding your decisions behind the scenes. And that's when you find yourself saying yes instead of no. Even after years of growth, this happens. But if you want 2026 to feel different in your body, if you want those gremlins that make you feel like you're 5 years old to just quiet down, this takes a different kind of work. It's not a light switch that you can just flick off or a candle that you blow out. It takes time, and it takes guidance from people who have walked this path and come out on the other side. Now, many of us believe that healing would be much easier if the people who harmed us or hurt us apologized and joined us in this process of healing, if they came along. But that is rarely the reality. They're not doing this work because the dynamics work for them. It gives them a sense of control and power. They're not trying to hurt you. They're protecting themselves. That's their survival pattern. And someone can be a good person and do not intentionally harm another person, but still not be good for that person. I've been using this analogy. I'm gluten-free. Bread isn't bad. It's nutritious. It's great for most people, but not for me. That protein makes me sick. And one of my clients who left a long-time marriage a couple of years ago recently started telling me that she realized she married a man who mirrors her relationship with her brother. And funny enough, she's also gluten-free. And she recognized that she wishes she could feel close to her brother again when they were little kids. And he changed when he became an adult, and he has been abusive ever since. Out of love and memories, she had been giving him grace, making excuses for his behaviors, just keeping the peace. But now she thinks of him and she thinks of her body on gluten. And she has broken all ties because her brother, just like gluten, he looks good on the surface, but he is not safe for her system. Her life has now been changing at a pace that feels superhuman to me. And no, she wasn't lucky. She has more obstacles than most people I know when it comes to physical and financial challenges. But she just decided that she deserved peace, and she called me to help. Now, people stay stuck in denial because change feels risky. That's true in politics and cult dynamics and in families. We convince ourselves, well, it's not that bad. We'll just stay where we are, because the cost to leave could feel worse than staying. And this Christmas, I trusted my instincts. I said yes to a couple of things, and then I decided I was better off completely alone, which is not in my nature. I hated feeling alone, but being with the wrong people feels more lonely than being completely by myself. So I stayed home. And that quiet, that serenity, that was the greatest Christmas gift I could have given myself. No emotional hangovers, no replaying of conversations in my head, no shrinking myself to please others. Major changes doesn't mean leaving everyone behind, because just the ones who make us feel less than. I did speak to people from my past on Christmas Day, but not everyone. Some people from my past chose growth. They did the work. They're still in my life. Others require me to subjugate myself to keep the peace. And that's the dynamic they prefer. That was the cost to not being alone. That was lonely and landing all over my nervous system. So this became an inside job. I had to learn to recognize those echoes and trust that there was something bigger and better available. I can only change me. I can invite aligned people along for the ride. But healing does require some separation and replacement of certain people. And when we first start, we do need rest. We do need space. But we also need healthier people, different models to help us retrain our nervous system. Isolation alone will not release the echoes. Connection with the right people will. In trauma healing, I love this quote: connection is the correction, but it depends who it is. And on the other side of fear, obligation, and misplaced guilt, when we surround ourselves with respectful, loving people, that is where serenity lives. And now there's a whole year to build on after last year so that this year's end feels even better, as though it could. But I think it can. And this is how change happens. Not when you feel ready, because fear will trip that up. It starts with a desire for more, a decision, because anything that makes us feel better later starts with facing something uncomfortable right now. Now, your miracle is going to look a little different than mine, but it always begins the same way, with choice, with free will, with other people who are healthier, and with the belief that you matter, because you do. Happy New Year. And let's kick off 2026 with a bang.